If you've just finished watching the latest Bridgerton story, Queen Charlotte, and now you feel like you have a period drama void that you need to fill, here are 5 TV and movie recommendations that are period dramas that I think would be great for fans of Bridgerton. I'll offer a brief synopsis of each one, as well as tell you why I think someone who'd like Bridgerton would like this particular movie. And hopefully one of these, or maybe all of these, will catch your eye. So let's dive right in. These are in no particular order, and they're really just to give you a sense of what's out there. So first up is Yorgos Lanthimos' The Favorite, starring Olivia Colman, Rachel Weisz, and Emma Stone. I think this one is great for fans of Bridgerton, especially if you are interested in its depiction of female friendships. This is the story of Queen Anne and her intimate relationship with Sarah Churchill, the Duchess of Marlborough, and how that relationship is kind of interrupted, or its flow is interrupted, by the arrival of Sarah's cousin, who's played by Emma Stone. She comes to the castle looking for a job now that her family has fallen on difficult times and she's lost all her wealth. So she gets hired as a servant and then moves up the ranks because she is quite manipulative and is able to kind of understand the dynamic that Queen Anne and Sarah have and find ways to shove herself into the mix. It's a really playful movie with a lot of dark humor and interesting cinematography. These are the things that Lanthimos is really known for. There's some parts that are filmed with the fishbowl lens, even though it's this lavish castle. It makes viewers feel kind of out of place and question like what is actually going on there. And the costume and design is really great. The designer included the silhouettes that this era is known for, but also unexpected trims like fur trims on dresses, polka dots and stripes, things that you wouldn't technically expect from that era. So it keeps you on your toes, and the story is phenomenal. And it dives into mental illness, vulnerability. It has a lot of fun gender bending, and it's just a great ride. Both The Favorite and the movie I'll be talking about next contribute to queer representation in the period drama genre. Next is The Handmaiden, the 2016 South Korean film directed by Park Chan-wook, who's most famous for his movie Old Boy. It features the actresses Kim Min-hee as the lady and Kim Tae-ri as the maid. The film is set during the era in which Korea is still part of the Japanese Empire, so sometime in the early 20th century, and it depicts another relationship between a wealthy woman and her chambermaid. So it digs into class tensions, intimacy, the limited roles of women at this time, and the heights they'll go to subvert those limits. If you like how steamy Bridgerton can get, then this movie doesn't lack in that department. It has some very long, intimate scenes. That made it kind of the topic of controversy for a while, but it really enhances the storyline and shows the kind of bonds that can happen. Familiar with Park Chan-wook's other movies, you should know that his movies tend to be very viscerally violent and sometimes gory, so this movie isn't for the faint of heart, but if you can handle the violence, then you really will love this. The costume design is once again just gorgeous, and actually the kind of feminine ways that the women present themselves and the jewels and the fabrics they wear are actually important to the plot in some ways. So there's really a keen eye for costuming and the role that fashion plays in how people present themselves in society. I couldn't make a video about period dramas without, of course, including at least one Jane Austen adaptation, which there are so many. The one that stood the test of time for me has been 2005 2005's Pride and Prejudice featuring Keira Knightley. Keira Knightley plays Elizabeth Bennet, the eldest of 5 daughters whose parents are trying to marry her off and secure her fortune and her future. It explores the difficulties between marrying for practical reasons like financial survival and marrying for love. And it's a theme that we see in a lot of Jane Austen novels, and this is no exception. But it's just a sweet rom-com with some beautiful costuming, though not as lavish as some of the others I mentioned because the Bennet family isn't wealthy. I hadn't watched this movie in a long time, and I was actually so surprised to see Matthew Macfadyen play Mr. Darcy, the love interest, because I now know him as Tom from Succession. So that kind of made me chuckle to see him in this more serious kind of romantic role. So if the romantic aspect of Bridgerton is what really hooked you, then you'll get your fill here for sure. One thing I like about Bridgerton is how it addresses the whitewashing of history and how just white period dramas have been up until now by casting a slew of actors from racially diverse backgrounds. Another series that also does this is the PBS period drama Sanditon. Sanditon is another adaptation of Jane Austen, but this time it's of a novel that she never finished, so it's a very loose adaptation which the writers took as the basis for the story. It's set in a seaside town and it portrays a black heiress of a West Indian sugar plantation. The character's name is Georgina Lamb and it's played by the actress Crystal Clark. She is a fully fleshed out character who's just as wealthy, if not wealthier, than her white counterparts, and that adds an important portrayal in this genre that we don't often see. The story itself is really about the way that society is constantly scheming and gossiping about one another. So if that kind of gossip girl aspect of Bridgerton is what you like best, then I think you'll like this one too. And lastly, Greta Gerwig's 2019 adaptation of Louisa May Alcott's Little Women. I had to mention this one because it was just such a joy to watch. I am a huge fan of Greta Gerwig, and I think she did this story justice and really made some of the characters who could have been perceived as bratty or annoying, just made them more real and made them more endearing to us as viewers. It's a sweet and poignant coming-of-age story that follows 4 March sisters in their lives, loves, and ambitions. Unlike the other recommendations I've given so far, aside from The Handmaiden, this is the only one that isn't set in Britain. It's actually set in the United States. It features standout performances by Saoirse Ronan, Florence Pugh, Timothée Chalamet. Jacqueline Durand, the film's costume designer, actually also worked on 2005's Pride and Prejudice. And she does a wonderful job in this film of combining the classic silhouettes of the period with unexpected fabrics and textures, adding a new twist to conventional Victorian costuming that we might expect. This film prioritizes the bonds between the siblings and the family and almost treats the romantic entanglements or the marriage proposals as somehow interfering with that dynamic, which I thought was interesting. The movie does a good job at showing marriage as not a glamorous thing and not necessarily what every woman wants in this time period, especially through the character of Jo, who wants to be a writer, and that's her priority. Her career is her priority, and everything else is kind of in the way. So those are my top 5 recommendations for what to watch next after you've finished Bridgerton. It was really difficult to just pick 5, as there are a lot of period dramas to choose from that are really great, but I think this is a good start. And if you'd like a part 2, let me know in the comments. Make sure to like and subscribe for more costume design, movie, and TV content. See you next time.